You're listening to Your Two Cents, the podcast. Hi, I'm Jonathan Torrens. 10 years ago, Joanna Griffiths had a big idea. She wanted to create leak-proof underwear for women, and nothing like it existed in the market. But she was told it was too niche. It would never get made. Joanna knew, though, in her gut that she just had to pursue it. Well, now, KNIX is a global brand with Canadian roots and a lot of heart. KNIX succeeded beyond her wildest dreams, and even more important to her, Joanna has helped change the lives of an entire community of women. Today, she's here to talk money, passion, and how to deal with rejection. Your Two Cents, the podcast, is proudly made by Canadian Content Studios in partnership with credit unions.
So my friend and fellow entrepreneur Abigail Kiso shared the other day that starting up is easy, but staying up is actually the hard part. And I could not agree more. Having a dream is one thing, but turning into a successful long-term business is another.
Our guest today is a shining example of what sticking to your gut looks like. From a startup in the basement of her home to a company that's sold with a valuation of $500 million, yes, $1 billion. Joanna Griffiths, the founder of KNIX, is here with us today. Hi.
Hi.
We're so excited you're here.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you. We've been watching your journey for a long time, and my goodness, you are such an inspiration. But there's just no possible way that you started in your basement and then sold your company for $500 million without some bumps in the road. So can you talk to us a little bit about what the startup phase of KNIX was like and how you figured out how to fund it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the startup phase for KNIX was an interesting chapter. I had this idea for leak-proof underwear, also now called period underwear. And we were really, really, really early to market with this product. We were basically the first to market. This was over a decade ago now. And the startup phase was just trying to convince myself, my family, anyone that this was a viable idea. So I remember, first having to figure out, how do I make this? Like, how do I actually make this product, and how do I get someone to believe that I'm worth, taking a bet on and taking a chance on? And how do I find the right manufacturing partners and the right lawyers and like all those different things? And how do I bring something to market that like doesn't really exist in the world? And so that was the first chapter. And it was probably one of the hardest chapters. I don't know. Every chapter I'm in, I'm like, this is the hardest. It's never been harder. I would say that about right now. But I think it was hard because I had to have so much conviction and belief in the idea itself. And I didn't necessarily have that conviction and belief in myself yet. So it was just all about, I think this is a really good idea. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to be the one that pulls it off, but I'm like fascinated and obsessed with this idea. And I really think it could change a lot of people's lives. And so I think that's what is hard about the first stage is you have to believe so strongly in something when you don't even necessarily believe in yourself yet. And that is really hard to keep going and really hard to kind of overcome obstacle after obstacle.
Was there a person or a moment or something that catapulted your belief in yourself? Like, obviously that changed at some point, but was it like a specific person or a specific moment that kind of changed how you felt or how confident you were in yourself and the brand itself?
There were like a handful of people along the way. So my dad was like super supportive. My now husband was like really, really encouraging that I should give this a shot and go for it. I worked on the concept while I was at business school. So like my entire class knew KNIX's tagline and they were all like big champions. But the one kind of piece of advice that I found that really helped me in the early days was from a mentor of mine who ended up becoming like a KNIX board member, who could just tell that I was struggling, like advocating for myself. I was really, really uncomfortable asking for things for myself, fighting for things. And so he was the one who said, I really think you need to create a mission-led company. Like you have to have, like KNIX is about so much more than just this product idea. You have this whole vision of what you want to accomplish. He's like, I really think you should articulate that. So every time when you don't want to get out of bed, when you're like fighting for a negotiation point, when people are tearing you down and you feel like you can't keep going, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it in pursuit of this like greater purpose. And so KNIX is like very much a purpose-led organization. My whole team knows like the reason and our mission. And that was how that all started, was I just could tell that if it was just about me, I was never going to make it. Ever, ever, ever. I would have given up 10 years ago.
That kind of leads us perfectly into kind of my next question. So your company is based off of embracing the reality of being human, the leaks, the shapes, the sizes. You could have easily just created a leak-proof brand alone, but you also chose to have that inclusivity as a core part of your brand DNA. Why is that?
So it's interesting because I never would have started KNIX if I hadn't understood the emotional impact that all of these things were having on people. So yeah, I had this idea for like a really cool product. I think it's cool. It was arguable at the time if it was cool or gross. Still have that argument.
We think it's cool.
But what really got me when I was doing the research was understanding that, okay, when someone experiences leaks, they are less likely to leave the house. They're less likely to be intimate with their partner. They're less likely to continue playing sports. They're less likely to, all these different things. It has such a big impact on your self-esteem, your self-worth, your relationships. And so that was really the thing like that got me to want to do KNIX, was understanding like, hey, this is a problem that so many people experience where there aren't really products that are suitable. And yet what happens when these things go unaddressed is that it fundamentally affects how we feel about ourselves. And I saw the chance to do something different, honestly. And that was why I wanted to do KNIX, was because I really wanted to help play a role in how do we help people feel more comfortable with who they are. I grew up, like I think we all did, in this era where like the most aspirational thing in the world when I was a teenager was to be thin, white, rich, starving, basically. And that was the goal. There was no other goal. That was the one thing that we saw. It was on the cover of every magazine. It's what like we were told was the one thing that we should aspire to be towards. And at KNIX, and I so fundamentally believe that the most aspirational thing in the world is to like ourselves, to be doing the work every single day, where every day we're letting go of a little bit of that self-doubt, a little bit of that self-hatred, so that we can actually be happier in who we are. And to be happy in who we are, we have to feel seen and respected. We have to feel welcome. We have to know that people believe that we're worthy of celebrating. And so that's kind of like where that all came from. It was, if I hadn't seen that greater calling for the brand, I don't think I would have done it, because I'm not motivated by money, which has been a very strange thing to learn along the way too.
Yeah. I saw, and my eyes are tearing up. That was so beautiful. And I think your brand is such a wonderful reflection of that genuine spirit that you have. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Alicia. That was just really amazing.
Yeah, no, I saw that you were just at the summit and heard Simon Sinek. So Start With Why was one of the greatest books that I ever read for myself and starting this journey and just living my life, because I'm very similar. Like, I need to have that core reason so that it's easier to push those things when you realize that it's greater than just one person and it's greater than just a product. So, and coming from somebody who is deeply impacted by their period for a very long a majority of their life, learning that period freedom is a thing, it has altered the course of my relationship with my period and the things that I do. And again, if it doesn't impact you, it's hard to understand. But it is like the way I live my life before getting period freedom or having period freedom is completely different than how I live it now. And it is so impactful. It's bigger than just a leak-proof pair of underwear. Like, it's bigger than that.
Thank you. I had this like really cool interview last week. So I was doing we won Entrepreneur of the Year for Canada, and I'm going to Monaco next week to compete for the Worlds. And so I did my interview last week, and one of the judges is like quite involved with the U.S. military. And so she brought up this example that she was at a conference, 2 weeks earlier, and she told folks about KNIX and what we were doing. And she was like, so many of the people knew about it, and they said, period freedom. They're like, this has been a game-changing equalizer within the military where we no longer have to think about, where's that bathroom? Am I going to have a leak? Like, they can just focus on serving and doing their job. And she told me this like so powerfully, and I started crying in the interview. I was like,
I'm going to cry again.
I was like, great. I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't think I was going to cry, but it's just like, you hear these stories of how the impact that it's having. And that was the big thing that when I heard Simon speak a week ago, that really stood out to me is like, success is about the impact, not the credit. Like, you don't have to win every single time. You don't have to like be known for absolutely everything that you did. I think being content creators, that's hard, right? Like, you're often like, I did that first, and now there's like a million memes and everyone's copying it and they're not giving me credit. But it's about the impact. You know what I mean? Like, I thought that was like so cool, and something that I definitely needed to hear.
That's amazing. This podcast is obviously about money.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm not motivated by money, but
no, I actually love that even more because not everybody is. And so I'm so curious. So I have worked for myself for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
I came from a corporate background. So I was in corporate marketing. I had a very stable life. My trajectory was incredibly clear. My income was increasing every year. I had great benefits. I had a great job. But I had this calling inside of me saying, I'm not doing the right thing. What does that look like and feel like for me?
Yeah.
But I grew up in a household where my dad was a serial entrepreneur. And I saw the highs and lows of what that looked like. And they were very different, the highs and the lows. And my mom fell in the middle of like, stability is her best friend, immigrant to the country, and rebuilt her life having nothing. And so for me, I really shied away from working for myself because I didn't want to identify as an entrepreneur or as someone working for myself because it scared me, frankly. So for me, I tried really hard to figure out how I could sort of start my startup on the side, start making enough money that I could leave the corporate world with a safety net for myself and take that leap. But what advice would you give someone to sort of find that balance or take that leap when working for yourself has big financial risks that come along with it?
It really does. And you never know if it's going to work out. And I see that even now, you know what I mean? Like, I have friends who are entrepreneurs who've been running brands for several years where I'm like, of course they're going to make it. Like, they have this company, and nothing is guaranteed. I think it's a really, really, really personal decision. And I think you have to check in with yourself and your comfort level around how do you function on the certainty, uncertainty axis. Like, I am very comfortable with ambiguity. I'm fine figuring things out. A lot of structure makes me uncomfortable, but that's not for everyone. And if you're uncomfortable with that, then the anxiety that it might lead to could ultimately mean that you can't be successful at what you're doing because you're stressing out the whole time on where things are on that piece. So I think it's so deeply personal. Yeah. And I personally with KNIX, like, I wouldn't have jumped just for anything.
Yeah.
I had to have something that I really, really, really believed in. And even after I went and did an MBA, I went back, like I was supposed to go dive in heads first. And I didn't. I went and got a part-time job, and I kept working until I was the limiting factor within my business where like decisions weren't getting made because I was then the bottleneck. And that was when I decided to leave my job. But I think that you can stage your way into it and always check in with yourself. Is this making me happier, more uncomfortable? Like, and how's it going?
No, I love that. I think that was the biggest piece of advice, which Sarah actually gave me, the Burst Papaya, when I was thinking about switching outside of my job that I had been working into content creating full time. And she said, just make sure you don't have to ever put yourself in a position that you have to say yes to something. Just like, because that can make or break your brand, that you want to be sure that the things that you're choosing to say yes to are because you believe in them, because they're right for your audience, because they're going to support you properly. And she was like, I've seen people jump into it where you have to say yes to something because you need to pay your bills, when realistically that's not going to be the best for, you know, your audience, your people, your brand in itself. So that I kind of staged my way in that sense, and made sure that I had enough money so that I didn't have to ever say yes to things that could compromise who I am or my integrity, my authenticity, etc. So yeah, it is a very personal decision, and it's a terrifying one to make.
And the highs and lows, it's constant. Like, it is constant. I still have highs and lows within any given day. You know what I mean? And for all intents and purposes, I've made it. But it's like, it's very stressful, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think until you've been in it, a lot of people can really understand and appreciate how stressful it is and how much you feel like you have at stake when you feel like you have everything at stake. Like, it's super isolating. Your friends don't get it. Your family doesn't really understand it. Your coworkers, like your teammates, if you're lucky enough to have it, they don't get it. They don't want to hear about it, you know?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you don't want to share that.
No. And listen, like, one of the things I'm proud of, like so many things at KNIX, but one of the things I'm most proud of is that we, compared to a lot of companies, really bootstrapped the organization. And there was not a single time that I didn't make payroll. I made payroll every 2 weeks for 10 years, even if that meant, you know, going and like doing whatever on my, like, personally to make it happen. But it's really a big responsibility. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think too, like, our model is different in that, you know, we're a production company outside of this podcast. So we can bring in sort of project-based people, but you start to see more and more as we've gotten bigger. We do have people where we make up the majority of their work now. And that is a responsibility that keeps me up at night. And I think too, I'm not necessarily motivated by money in what I want for myself. It's, do I have enough to keep spreading it around? Can the team get bigger? Can we invest in our people in a different way? So it's like they always say that you get more afraid of doing scary things as you get older because you have more to lose. When you're 20, you go jump out of a plane. You don't have as much to lose at that age. But as you get older and as your business grows, you do have so much more to lose. But I do think that's for people also switching careers. They might not necessarily go from working in a corporate job to working for themselves. But if there's a career move or you're not doing the right thing, any leap can feel really terrifying if you've got a lot on the line. And so I do think it's deeply personal. I think you have to be really honest with yourself. In my case, with my partner as well, it was like we had built our lives up to this point. What happened if for me it didn't work out? What would we do? And are we both okay with what that looks like? Are you okay if it goes really, really well? Because some people can't handle that either. And so you do have to really be open about your feelings about things. And thankfully, I have a very supportive partner as well too, but that's not for everybody. And you don't always know what the answer will be till you're really in it. But I think avoiding those conversations is a recipe for disaster.
Did you know that credit unions got their start giving loans to small businesses that weren't seen as viable by others? They were also the first place to lend money to women on their own, and credit unions brought the first ATMs to Canada. So aside from being trailblazers, their people and community-first attitude makes them the perfect place for all your money matters. Whether you're opening your first account, looking for a mortgage, or just seeking some simple advice for saving, they'll take care of you. Credit unions are proud to sponsor Your 2 Cents, the podcast, because they know the more we talk about money, the less scary it'll be.
You just celebrated 10 years. That is, I know I got my little PR package in the mail. I wore my bodysuit this weekend. And that's so exciting, 10 years, although I'm sure it feels like it's been a lot longer than that. KNIX has obviously come a long way since its inception. What do you think is the best thing that you've learned in this experience, in the last 10 years? It can be funny. It can be, what's the one thing that's kind of stuck with you?
So Yeah, that's such a good question. So everyone says this, like the what do they say about when you have kids? It's like the nights are long and the days are short, or something like that. I can't remember. But
Days are long and the years are short, or
the
something?
days are long and the years are short. Yeah. So that is next to a T. I feel like I've been doing it for 150 years. And then at the same time, I feel like I just got started yesterday. So that is like so fascinating. The main thing that I've learned about growing and building a business, and especially getting a business to this size, is I really, really, really underestimated the amount of personal growth and development that it was going to take, and how to get to this space to evolve from being like a solo entrepreneur where you do everything yourself and you're super scrappy and like, to then building teams, leading teams and whatnot. It has taken so much personal work. Like there's not a demon inside of me that I haven't had to face. There's not, like, it's true though. Like it's like, and no one ever talked to me about that. Ever. They talked a lot about burnout, like don't get burnt out, protect your energy, but no one ever really explained to me that the only thing that was going to have to keep up with KNIX's growth was me. And I wish I knew that earlier, because I would have started therapy a lot earlier. I would have had coaches a lot earlier. I would have like really, really, really invested in it. And that's something that I wish more people talked about,
Yeah.
And I think there's exceptions, but most of the successful folks that I know that I like choose to spend my time with, whether they're content creators or they're business owners or they're whatever, they're doing a lot of personal work.
Yeah. Delegation is terrifying too. I think people that switch between like coming from working in as a general manager and in just a fitness club sense, like learning how to like give away what feels like your power over something you're passionate about to people who you've like trained, and like that's the only way to protect your energy. And how do you trust people with something that is like your livelihood and the livelihood of other people? It is very, very terrifying. Very, very terrifying. So would you say, just kind of off that question, would you say that the therapy and coaching is something that you would suggest to people to start like earlier on? Like, would that be your biggest piece of advice?
Yeah, it would be. And it doesn't, from an investment standpoint, it doesn't actually have to mean that you need to go shell out like tons of money on coaches. Like I was so skeptical, to be honest, because it feels like every third person that was messaging me was a coach. And I was like, I don't know how to tell the difference. And are you good or are you good? It can be as straightforward as like listening to podcasts that really focus on personal growth and, like facing your demons and working through these really human struggles around trust, communication, belief in yourself. Like, I've learned so much from Esther Perel, who's a relationship expert, because
Yes.
like our work relationships are a form of a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think whether it's like reading, listening to podcasts, or actually going and seeking like more structured support, I think it's super important.
I love that.
It's really interesting that you touch on that, because you're really speaking to me today. I feel like this conversation is coming at a very pointed moment in time, which is very interesting. But I've personally just had to step into a new role in our business because of growth. And it's terrifying. There was a meeting happening today that I would normally be part of, and I didn't need to be there. And it felt super weird. And I was like, the control freak in me is going, are you sure you don't want me at the meeting? And I'm going, no, I just am not going to go, because I know the right team is in place looking after things. But that idea that you have the belief that you could start something and that you can grow something, but then you don't need to be part of every detail of it, that's wild to me. And I know it's the only way for us to grow. And I love that you were talking about when you become the bottleneck, that you have to make change. And I actually think that's such a great way to look at it, because if when you're the bottleneck, of course you do, if you're not getting to things, you're not answering people in a timely way. It just takes a lot, because you think in your head, I'm the only one that can do this, not even in an egotistical way, just in like, this is my heart and soul. Of course, I need to be part of all of it. So I think for me, coaches really scare me too. That has been a really skeptical thing in my life. But I also one time heard the idea that if you have to ask someone to be your mentor, and it's not just someone who's naturally in your life in some way, they're probably not a mentor for you. Like gravitate to the people that you naturally connect with and you learn from organically, and then approach that person to say, hey, we've got this really cool thing. Can I talk to you about X, Y, and Z? Because sometimes that's a little bit safer. Or if they're not the right person, maybe they've got someone that they could recommend to you. But coaching can be kind of scary, and you don't want to be preyed upon, especially in your situation where you're so publicly out there and your business is growing. It could be very easy for someone to hit you in a weak moment, and then all of a sudden you're throwing a lot of money out the window. So I too, I love podcasts, but I do think there's really incredible people in your own network that might not appear as quote unquote mentors, but could offer a lot of insight and wisdom to you as you go on your journey.
Yeah, that's a great call out as well.
For me, something that really motivates me is that when people are told no, but their guts are saying, yes, you can do this. It's something that personally motivates me a lot, is being underestimated. But it's really hard to hear that. Do you have any tactics for surviving rejection or the people questioning you?
Yeah, I do. So, couple tactics that I've learned from coaching and therapy. Okay. Number one, separate fact from fiction. So what in the rejection is rooted in fact and what is rooted in fiction? Do you know what I mean? Or even when you're interpreting it, what is really, what did they really say versus how are you interpreting what they said? So they might say, hey, you know what? Actually, we're going to go with a different production company that has experience in this area. We really like you. Okay, what do you do with that rejection? Do you know what I mean? Do you think about doubling down in that area for future business? Does that make sense? Or do you spiral out of control and tell yourself that they rejected you because you are not good enough and you have the worst production company and no one's ever going to give you a job and you're never going to have as much experience as someone else, so why even bother? Fact and fiction. Start there. So that has been very helpful for me. The second is pump up songs, pump up run. I don't run, but what is the tool to get you back on the productive track? Because I actually think rejection can be a really powerful tool. And the more successful that I see people get, they come across as quite fearless. And the fearlessness is really just because they've been rejected so many times. They've been told so many times, they've gotten back up so many times that they're not afraid of it anymore. What's the worst that's going to happen? So I think whatever works for you to kind of get you back onto that track is also really, really, really helpful. And then the final thing I'll say on this, because you mentioned this idea of being underestimated, and I was underestimated for a decade. I probably still am. It is such a powerful tool. It means that you are the one that gets to define and redefine what the goals are that you want for yourself, what you think success looks like. It's not coming from an external pressure or an external point of view. You actually get to go on this personal journey because no one's really looking to you. They're all kind of thinking you're not one to watch. And there's something really liberating in that. Where you get to define what success looks like on your own terms because no one is expecting to see it come from you. And that I think is cool.
That's very cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a really cool way to think about that. This conversation has been incredible. So as part of the podcast, we are asking all of our guests the same final questions to kind of compare them. We're calling it a speed round, but as you can tell, there's really not much speedy about our delivery or answers. So we're going to give it a shot. So the first question is, what is the best thing you've ever spent money on?
I just bought my nanny a house, and we're actually we spent the whole weekend assembling furniture and stuff, and they move in 2 days' time. And that is bar none the best thing I've ever spent money on.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
I don't know what's wrong with today. I'm just a well over here. I'm not even a big crier. I feel like I'm watching the finale of American Idol season 1 all over again over here. Holy moly. That's incredible. That's so cool. Okay, so then what's the worst thing you've ever spent money on?
Oh God. Worst thing I've ever, so many things. I bought this like gravity machine, this gravity table. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you lie on it and
The
then
ones that flip you over?
I bought that and it's been in a box in my closet for 3 years now. Like, haven't even opened it. Don't even really know what it was. Don't know why I bought it. It was at the start of COVID. I had back pain. I was like, I'm going to buy this gravity machine. So gravity table. So that would be up there. Yeah.
You could give it to your nanny, put it in their house. They could stretch out, find a good stretching space for them.
Yeah. It takes up so much room. Like, yeah.
They are huge too. They're like full. Yeah. Okay. Have you ever lied about how much money you have? Obviously, with selling KNIX, and that's been very hard to not like have that conversation about money. But were there periods of time where you ever lied about how much money you do have?
I don't think so. I think I've always been pretty open about that stuff. I maybe, didn't give direct answers.
Yeah.
So if a team member during hard times was like, how much money do we have in the bank? I'd be like, we're good. I wouldn't give like a direct response. I mean, we maybe weren't good, but I would still say, it's okay. Don't worry. Everything's fine. So I take it back. I don't know if I've directly lied, but I've definitely like tried to protect folks.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting one. We found that most people have said yes, whether they haven't had a lot of money or they've had a lot of money and didn't want to answer to it, which is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the best tip about money you could share with someone?
Oh, I am very bad with money. I'm not a good person to ask about this. Okay. I'll give one. Lesson I learned the hard way. You don't have it until it's in the bank. So you could think that it's coming, believe that it's coming, be told that it's coming, have contracts that say that it's coming. Until that money is in your bank account, it is not yours. And there's absolutely no guarantee that you're going to get it. And that is a hard lesson to learn, especially when I feel like you're a face value integrity person. You're like, but they said and I think it's a lesson that like every entrepreneur person kind of has to learn the hard way. So the money is not yours until it's in your bank account.
Yeah, no, I'm also not good with money. So I'm also the person that is like face value. It's got to be coming. And then I'll get my list of things that haven't been paid to me yet. And I'll be like, what? Yeah. Why? Why is this not?
Yeah. I'm
so confused. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you deal in fairness, which I think we all do, that principle of it is so challenging. And I just want to ease your concerns here. This podcast was started for this exact reason, is that we're not financial experts talking to financial experts for a reason. We've all gone through so many things in our lives that have made us go back and learn more, or we've stumbled and we've fallen and we've had to rebuild from something. And that's why I love these conversations, is because we have no idea what we're doing either. This has just been like trial and error, and hopefully we're learning some things along the way. But life is not, for those of us who didn't grow up with lots of conversation about money, we're just trying to figure it out and hope we come out on the other side of it all, and that we can make payroll and pay our bills and do all the things. And that's not always the reality for everybody. So that's why, Alicia and I love this podcast. I don't speak for both of us, but we love it because we get to sort of squash that. And in the same way that talking about periods can feel really gross and unliberating, we're trying to do that same thing about money and making it something that isn't taboo and that people want to actually talk about, because there's so much shame wrapped up in that too.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's going to be really cool too for this conversation to like, obviously, what your headlines have looked like since like selling and what that looks like. And it's obviously the focus on money. I think people forget that money can come without it being the focus. That like for someone like you, what's driven the business, what's driven you, what's driven your people is your people and your why, and kind of how you've attached on to that. And I resonate with that too. Like I'm very much an experienced type of person and other people. And I know that about you too, that you care about having the people that you love and respect around and giving them experiences. And I'm very, very similar to that. And I think it'll be cool for those who are stuck right now in that realm of making money to realize that there's a bigger picture than just like the dollar amount. And that if you kind of latch onto your why and your reasoning, that can come too. And you don't have to always be stuck on that specifically.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love that.
Absolutely. We've had the pleasure of being in the company of the things that you've put on and the energy and the self-love and the care. I don't think I've ever been to anything more powerful than the event you had back in November, where it was electric. It was truly women supporting women. It was us feeling comfortable in our own skin. That doesn't happen without having actual values at the core of what you're building. That's not something, as cliche as it is, that money can buy. That's a values and purpose driven company. And to be able to have like been in the presence and to see it firsthand, it makes me so proud to wear your product. It makes me proud to be able to have these kinds of conversations because I've been personally touched by it, being able to see that in real life. And it's really, really cool to be able to go, oh, that brand's actually really amazing. It's not just a great product. It's a great business. So we really are so thankful to talk to you today because this has just been
a dream.
I'm all warm and fuzzy.
Thanks for having me. And you know what? I'm going to use that gravity machine. I'm going to use that gravity table.
Yes.
No,
I do have a friend that has one and
Oh gosh.
Well, your intention was there. We appreciate that.
And congratulations on buying your nanny a home. That is so exciting. So exciting.
Thank you.
That's really amazing.
Yeah, I think as a society, we really, really, really undervalue like homework and caregiving, and it is so fundamental. And so, yeah, it felt like the obvious thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in order for you to be there, someone has to be here. And that's it's so important. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on today. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Yeah. So great to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We'll talk soon.
Awesome.
Bye.
So many takeaways from this conversation, but the biggest one for me is to power through rejection. Luckily, I kind of specialize in getting rejected. As an actor, it's like you're a traveling salesperson and the product you're selling is yourself. So it's kind of hard not to take it personally when people say, I don't want to buy that. But I guess the upside is you build up a thick skin pretty quickly and learn that there are so many factors far beyond your control at play, which is actually kind of freeing. Because that allows you to concentrate on the one variable you can control, yourself. Hey, do you have a business idea you know in your heart is a winner? Credit unions pride themselves on helping businesses get off the ground. And what really makes them unique is that they stick around to watch them thrive too. Have questions? Get in touch with a credit union expert today.